got my mojo working, babe.
Yes, we do.
And I'm gonna try it on you.
We are back.
Another Jimmy Doane show.
That's right. For your listening pleasure, this is May 13th, 2018.
Mother's Day.
That's right.
Mother's Day.
Happy Mother's Day.
To all you mother people.
And this is the Jimmy Doane Show. We have Jimmy here, and I am Counselor Curtis.
Yes. Welcome to you all.
Hey, hey, hey. Whoops. There you are.
Trying to do two things at once.
Yeah. All right. So what's going on today?
Well, Mother's Day, I was interested. I made a few notes on it just for laughs. And I still, unfortunately, my eyes still are seeing double.
Okay.
And like tomorrow, I get to go to the eye doctor, and she's supposed to fix it. I don't know, but it's been a month now. Anyway, so the modern Mother's Day started in 1908.
Okay.
So it's fairly new, and of course, Hallmark jumped on the bandwagon in the 20s with the cards. And
why not?
Yeah. Well, so it turns out I was doing just a little research. The lady who started it in 1908, she did it for her own mother who had died.
Okay.
And so, but she was devastated by the 20s or 30s, or whatever it was, that it had become so commercial. And of course it has.
Why? Who cares?
Yeah, well, they tried to make it a national holiday.
She didn't want other people celebrating their mom also?
I don't know. I mean, well, what had happened is it had become too commercial. She said, as far as she was concerned, Mother's is fine, but now, you had to, I mean, like right now, for instance, Mrs. Jimmy calls me up, and I'm going to be, in deep doo-doo if I don't, make sure that today is her special day.
Right. Well, and I don't understand what the problem with commercialism. I mean, I know you don't either. I just, this general mood out there that is anti-commercial, like there's...
It's a guilt trip. That's what I don't like about it. It's a guilt trip.
I agree. I mean, if to me, if you choose two endeavors and one of them's the guy's making a buck and the other one is breaking even, or he's doing it for charity. I mean, I'm with the guy who's making a buck.
No, I'm with you on that. I do not believe in what do you call it, charity, nonprofit organizations. I don't believe that there should be such a thing. I just don't believe that anything should be. I mean, because first of all, I mean, a nonprofit organization, whether you like it or not, does make a profit.
Well, look, that's what it comes down to is that concept, which is to say, if you're going to have corporations, the purpose of a corporation is to make a profit. The whole point is to support the people, the members, in some endeavor, make the profit. That's what you're there.
Well, it's also, but the main thing is, it's for the shareholders and everything, but it's also to keep you out of legal trouble.
Well,
I mean, because corporations, you can sue the corporation, but you can't sue the principals.
Okay, what I mean is the organization of the people. Forget about the legal structure.
Okay.
You're right. The legal structure is there to for other reasons, but the organization of the people, they're there to turn a profit because they're doing something efficient.
Right.
Okay. And the concept behind a nonprofit is you're endeavoring to do something that is by its very nature inefficient, like give something away. You're supposed to give something away. Well, you can't give something away
And stay in business.
Right. And so the only way you can do it is if you operate something which takes donations from other profitable people,
right, and
then gives that stuff away. And then I can understand why you would organize your group of people for that purpose. You don't need a quote-unquote company to do that. You don't need a legal structure to do that. Now it's all convoluted, which is what you point out, which is that they all make money, and they have ways of playing the shell game, so it looks like they don't make money.
Right. I mean, when you look at the CEOs of some of these places, like the Red Cross and other places, I mean, they're making $750,000 a year. I mean, they're making, $750,000, $800,000 a year. Some of these people. Well, they're doing all right, and they get perks, they get cars, they get all that kind of stuff.
That's profit.
That's their. Well, you're going to spend it one way or the other, know, or else it's you got to show on the IRS that you spent all the money. So anyway, that's the deal. Anyway,
so she didn't like that. Boo-hoo on her.
Yeah, boo-hoo on her. So anyway, Mother's Day, another one. Okay, they tried to make it. It turns out that the second Sunday in May is by far and away the most celebrated Mother's Day. but I was looking up on the internet, and of course, Mother's Day is celebrated all kinds of different days depending on the country. But by far and away, there's like 100 or 150 countries that celebrate it as we do today. So much for that. So I'm sorry about the bust up of the computer. My computer just blew up 2 minutes before coming over here, so I had to try and memorize the stuff that I was getting ready to print out. Really, that had to do with that lightning strike we had the other day. But I thought it was kind of interesting and here it was today that my Macintosh blew up, of course.
Okay.
And Tim Cook yesterday or the day before came out up for gun control. He's a liberal, you know. He's the CEO
with the new Macintosh, and he sent the signal to blow up your Mac.
That's it, because he does. I disagree with him. I've said I was going to print that out about how he had.
Well, I was saying so you'd come buy a new one.
Well, I got no
your
money.
Your warranty has expired.
Yeah, actually, I got to go check on that. I did buy a 3-year Apple Care, so I'm going to check on that tomorrow. But he did weigh in on gun control. He's a lib and everything like that. But
right.
I thought it was interesting that just as I was getting ready to print out his little news blurb, it
secret code.
It smoked. Yeah, I mean, see, it only printed out, like that's the kind of stuff it printed out. So anyway, that was a signal from him. The next thing that happened is about a politician. This is really kind of interesting. Former Mayor Michael Bloomberg warned Saturday that the worst threat facing the country isn't terrorism or communism, it's an epidemic of dishonesty. Now, this is coming from a politician. And of course, there is an old adage that has been around for, I don't know, millennia, that how can you tell when a politician is lying? It's when his lips are moving. And so this is so normal. It starts off with campaign promises that are just a joke, and an appeal to propaganda and so forth. The billionaire who has called President Trump a con and a dangerous demagogue cautioned at an endless barrage of lies and alternate realities in national politics endanger U.S. democracy. And of course, one of the things that is interesting about democracy is we were never supposed to be one. This was a republic, and big difference. And democracy, unfortunately, a lot of people realize this as mob rule. And there was something just recently, we had an election on something, I forget what it was. There was either a proposal, a constitutional proposal or something, and the vote was 51 to 49%. Well, that's hardly what you call a convincing win. And yet the 49 have to kind of go along with, they've agreed to go along. Well, it's amazing, because when you look at some of these elections where the turnout, especially here in Gainesville, is 20%, 24%, which means that 10% or 12%, say 12 or 13% of the registered electorate is actually making the decision for the other 86 or 87%, which means I tell people all the time when they're sitting up there in their commission seat, you realize that 86% of the population did not vote for you. So.
Well, it's like they always say, it may not be the best political organization, democracy, but it's the best one that we know of. And I mean, I'm with you. It seems like a crazy situation, but as long as we have a constitution in place which limits what they can do, whoever they are, then.
But it really doesn't.
No, I know. At this point, they've run roughshod over the whole thing.
Really.
But I mean, there are a couple of protections that are still in place, and a couple that have been gaining in strength.
Really?
Yeah, a couple of the
what?
The search and seizure stuff.
Really?
Yeah.
Search and seizure. They monitor all your phone calls, internet, and everything else.
Well, that was a step backwards.
Yeah.
But for
here they even found out that they tapped somebody's phone.
Trump's lawyer's phone.
Oh, yeah, right. I mean.
Yeah, look, as I said, all the electronic surveillance has taken a step backwards in that regard, but they recently came out with a ruling that said that you have some expectation of privacy in your automobile, finally.
Yeah.
And generally the laws have been pretty good over the last few decades in terms of the evolution of search and seizure.
Well, I don't know. I'm not sure about that, because we've come up with no-knock warrants, for instance.
That was a step backwards.
I mean, that is just a real big step backwards.
Yeah.
And the FISA stuff is, secret
Huge.
courts.
Yeah, I know. Big.
Secret. I mean, this is secret courts, for God's sakes, issuing
Well,
stuff.
they're not that secret, but the thing is that they are incredibly deferential.
Yeah.
As we've learned, there have been practically no, or in fact, no FISA court denials
Right.
of warrants.
And then, of course, the big scandal, of course, was the fact that they brought this dossier up, the Trump dossier or whatever it was, or whatever the guy's name from England. Steele dossier up as part of the deal, but didn't tell them where they got it.
Well, I mean, that's up to, the judge should be circumspect about the evidence.
Right.
And, I mean, that just points to the concept that this is crappy.
It points to the concept that the FBI can do no wrong. There are honest people run by honest people.
Well, this is Comey. I mean, Comey,
Right.
we're talking about the guy who prosecuted Martha Stewart.
Yeah.
That's all you have to know,
Yeah.
okay? Martha Stewart is an American icon. He made her a felon,
Yeah.
okay? That's Comey. He's a jerk.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all that you can say about that guy. He sucks.
Yeah.
So the fact that he would bring up bogus stuff to a judge, all you can say is you would hope that the judges would be like, it's Comey. Here comes Comey.
Yeah.
Let's see what he's got this time.
Yeah.
Because the judges do talk, and I have a lot of respect for the judiciary
I
for
guess
obvious
being an
reasons.
attorney, yeah, right. Yeah, right.
But so
The problem, of course, is when it goes wrong, it really, really hurts.
well, and this dovetails into a big thing that we need to talk about, this week, which is Attorney General Schneiderman.
Did we didn't talk about him last week?
No, it didn't happen.
No, that's
Eric
right. it didn't.
Schneiderman, right?
Oh my God.
Yeah. So here's a guy. Once again, you want to know why there should be limits on power? It's because here's a guy who's willing to use his power for his own personal. I'm going to go with pleasure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean.
Well, this to
He's a
bring you up,
masochist.
in case you've been asleep or just woke up this morning.
Mm-hmm.
Schneiderman was the Attorney General in New York State, I guess.
Yeah.
And as such has immense power. And
Right.
he has always been a champion for women's rights.
Right.
All the time. I mean, he's strong for women's rights, and they worshipped him for this. In fact, they play over and over again. They play this ad by what's her name, the Samantha Bee, I think, or somebody.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
And she's worshiping him, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And it's part of his campaign. She says, "I would da 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 da," and then he comes in and says, "This is Schneiderman, whatever," and so forth. And she is just worshiping this guy. Well, of course, now it comes out
He had a good game.
right, but then it comes out that he's been horribly abusing at least 4 women, and
Yeah.
2 of them went public with it. And at first he said this was all consensual, but literally 180 minutes later, he resigned on the spot.
Doesn't look good.
No, it doesn't look good.
Again, innocent until proven guilty. If he's guilty of the accusations, they include basically rape. But other than that, and if you look closely at this kind of thing, I mean, it looks like at least a couple of the girls were probably into that type of S&M thing. They kept dating him for months and years after that. But probably a couple weren't. And it looks like he was one of these guys whose style was just to bust into his game, like the old Seinfeld, he took it out,
Yeah, right.
I mean, you just, it looks like this guy. That's right, it out.
Yeah.
I mean, no, it looks like the guy's MO is just to go off and whack a girl and hope that she goes, ooh,
well, not
hit
that
me
much,
harder.
but, there are some girls that love the bad boys.
Well, of course.
I mean, we see this all the time when prostitutes stick with their pimps, even they get abused. And
I mean, that's a little different. I mean, that's sort
Not all
of a
that.
Stockholm syndrome thing. But there's the bad boy thing, and then there's look, there's a whole fetish community that loves this kind of thing. But I would imagine that if you're part of that there's some kind of clearing process. Some type of acknowledgement. Yes, I'm in, or no, I'm not in,
or a safety word.
Right, that's what I mean. And you got to talk about that word before you start.
Right. Yeah.
You can't just
Well, of course, if you're being choked, it's a little hard to get right.
Yeah, that's right. Her word was gurgle, gurgle. No, So this is it's a little bit shocking. Schneiderman, actually, I have said good things about Schneiderman in the past. I have, because he was one of the few guys who went after the big banks after the foreclosure situation.
Okay.
So you do some good. Whatever, you break a few eggs.
Yeah.
I'm not endorsing anything that he's allegedly done. But it is kind of scary, and that's why you want to have limits. But I've been saying, the microscope's turning on these on the powerful people.
Yeah, as well it should. Anyway, this is all from the Bloomberg thing, and I thought it was interesting. He's in his speech, he refused to comment on Trump's own, because he doesn't like Trump, on his relationship with the truth. But I thought it was interesting. He said it came from George Washington, who cannot tell a lie, to today, where politicians, can't tell the truth. Well, of course, he didn't specifically single out Trump, but you know who he was talking about. He said he called out both Democrats and Republicans without naming particular people. So anyway, so much for that. Apple exec, okay, the Trump. Of course, there's more information on the Trump Nobel Peace Prize.
Okay.
Big deal, big happenings in the Norks.
Right.
This next week or two, they're supposed to blow up all their tunnels.
Yeah.
And Trump is, as I said, this is great news. Apparently they're going to have an international cadre of people to witness this.
On its face, it looks great.
On its face, and as I say, Trump, did two things. First of all, he withdrew from the Iran thing.
Right. Well, that's a separate issue.
It sent a message to North Korea.
What message? If we make a deal with you, we'll back out, maybe?
Something like that. You got to be careful, but
it's not a good message.
No, I'm thinking that there was another way that somebody wrote on.
The other way they could say it is
Rockwell.
he's not going to accept a crappy deal.
Yeah,
right.
That's
another way to read it.
I think that's what it was. That's what it was. It was on Lou Rockwell. And a guy had written a thing about that. I forget who the guy was, but LouRockwell.com or whatever is a site that I regularly visit because they have pretty good insights. Mm-hmm. But at any rate, they so anyway, that takes care of that. The Trump Nobel Prize. It turns out when they interview the Scandinavians,
mm-hmm.
the Norwegians and the Scandinavians, they are all sitting there saying, you were laughing your ass off. There's no, because they're the ones that give it.
Mm-hmm.
So they said there's no chance, that he'll get the Peace Prize. And
because he's not in their club or whatever.
Right, exactly. They look at him as just some kind of a wild, thing or whatever. And no matter what he does, if he brings the unification of the Norks and the Souths,
right,
not good enough.
Yeah, no, nothing. I think. Like we've talked about before. As soon as Yasser Arafat got the prize,
right?
It went off the rails.
Right.
You wouldn't even after that. You hardly even want it.
Right.
It's
in
like
in the same company
that's
on the
right.
wall. Your picture on the wall.
That's right.
Right.
With this guy.
There's Yasser with his.
Right. Well, he's known terrorists, admitted, and everything.
Right.
Not like he was hiding it or anything.
Well, of course, as we said, we got Obama got his right before he started, carpet bombing the Mideast.
That was like such a gifty thing. That was like a backhanded, here, we're going to do something for you, please give us some cash or some kind of ridiculous
the
thing.
Scandinavians don't want cash, I wouldn't think. But
they wanted something, they wanted, they wanted something for that.
Okay, then the other thing, let's see, let me just get to the next thing here. I don't want to make this too long. China has has built its biggest warship, an aircraft carrier, finally an aircraft carrier. First one.
Mm-hmm.
They had one before that was retrofitted from the Soviets.
Mm-hmm.
But this is basically the first one that's homegrown, and they brag on about what, how big it is and so forth. It's about
just in time for aircraft carriers to be obsolete.
Right. Well, not only that, of course, it's interesting because they now have one,
mm-hmm.
and we have like a dozen.
Right.
Number one, and as they freely admit that theirs is not up to snuff as far as ours are concerned, it's.
They did it for pride,
I guess. Well, they started off. They said they're going to build more, it's 60,000 tons, and ours are like 80 and 100,000. Our newest ones, and ours are obviously, and of course they say we got a dozen. What do you know? Why are they bothering? I wonder.
Like I said, that's a source of pride. They've been doing a couple things like that. They want to do a couple things like land a guy on the moon, have an aircraft carrier, they have internet, stuff like that. Stop eating dogs. I mean, they need to do a couple of things to sort of get themselves in the back into the world limelight.
Yeah. Well, they're that population, they're pretty much.
And I joke about the dogs thing. They're
right. Yeah.
Not going to stop.
So anyway, that's about it for that. And the one of the last things I've got here is I've got a couple things from our local paper that I want to chat about.
Well, now let's go back real quick to the Iraq situation.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah, good point. I mean,
that's the elephant in the room. That's what happened. The big news allegedly in the last week is Trump withdraws from the Iraq deal.
And boy, the effect on everybody is monumental.
What? How so?
Well, first of all, the Russians are ecstatic because they have been trading around with Iraq all the time anyway, and so the fact that Iran anyway. So the point is that their trade is going to go up.
Iran. It's supposed to be Iran, but I'm sorry. It rhymes with Barbara Ann. That's how you know.
Okay. So anyway, the point is that he withdrew from that, and right away the Russians, they get to trade more.
How?
Because we are withholding trade from Iraq.
So they get to amp theirs up.
Exactly.
Okay.
They are ecstatic about this. I mean, they said some oligarch or somebody said, this is the best thing to ever happen for us.
Yeah.
And of course the other Europeans, the Germans and the French and so forth, are saying, what the hell? We're getting screwed here, because it turns out that Trump has intimated that other people who trade, i.e. the Western countries, they're going to be sanctioned.
Right.
Because, and of course they're a little nervous about that, as you would expect. So the question is, how far do these sanctions go? Do they also go to anybody who trades with Iran?
Right. Well, that was his, like you said, his intimation, but it was,
Well, it certainly hurt our country. I mean, Boeing had a deal for billions of dollars.
Right.
And bye-bye.
Well, as we've said many times, I think we agree that the way forward is with the trade. You never want to do sanctions.
No.
You always want to open up the doors.
They have never, in millennia, sanctions have never worked.
Well, and not only that, but trade does work. What happens is...
I forgot what somebody said. Either the trade goes across borders or soldiers.
Oh, yeah. And, IBM's motto, peace through world trade. And this is... The way forward is with the trade. You trade as much as possible, and then you let the politics work out as well as you can. Now, it seems to me that there's something else going on here. I mean, Iran is no threat to us.
No.
So, what are we doing? Why does this even come across our desk, basically? And it has to be something to do with Israel.
Oh yeah.
I mean, this is, there's more here than meets the eye, is what I'm thinking. Because otherwise, my thought would be, you tell Iran, look, shut up, or we're going to let Israel kick your butts.
Well,
what? You don't want us to back off, because if we just back off, Israel could glass Tehran in
think so?
Oh yeah, in no time.
It's a pretty big country.
Right, but the capital? Psh.
Well, yeah, Damascus.
Well, Tehran.
Tehran, I'm sorry, Tehran.
Yeah.
I get them. What do I know?
Damascus is Syria.
Yeah, I know.
Well, you might have to do that one too. But the point is they could do that. They could wipe out the main city. They could hurt them in a big, bad way if they wanted to.
I just, I wonder about that, unless you're going to use nukes.
That's what I'm talking about.
Oh, well, there's a Pandora's box.
Well, but look, Pandora, Schmandora, what's going on? Yeah, I mean, look, there's people dying. If this is such a big, serious situation, then cut to the chase. Let's get it on. Light those suckers off, Now, look, I'm obviously I'm a little bit hyperbolic here,
Yep.
But just a little. But my point is that this is a big to do about not much, if you ask me.
I agree with you on that. And what happens, of course, is that the 24-hour news cycle makes everything a big deal. I mean, and every pundit in the world weighs in on this.
Yeah, they've tried to come out and say, Trump has lit off World War III basically by withdrawing from the deal, and I just don't see anything.
And they said, of course, also since Trump withdrew from the voluntary, mind you, Paris deal, that now the Earth is going to be completely polluted.
Well, it spins off its axis.
Right.
That's it.
Into the sun.
That's
yeah.
it.
So I mean, stuff like that it's, as I say, the people that don't like him. As I say, he could cure cancer tomorrow, and there'd be a problem.
Yeah. Well, we can't worry about those folks. I mean,
you can't, except for the fact that there's an awful lot of believers. I mean, when you look at the mainstream press, and here the Gainesville Sun is a perfect case. In here, there are editorials today about, and there's none of them that like Trump. I mean, they are just the Sunday paper for the Gainesville Sun has an entire section called Issues, which is all guest editorials, and they're
a bunch of whiners. I mean, it's wine city. They're losing their butts.
Well, the fact is that they can't keep their nose out of anything. Our local government, as most of them do. We had one article here about. Here's the headline: is that Trump welcomes the Norks plan. Okay, can you see that? Yeah.
Yep.
And let's see, just here, what else? Talk of Trump's Nobel Peace Prize continues, and then what's the other thing down here? The other big thing here is nope, that's nothing. Okay, that's nothing. Anyway, that was the big news on that. The other thing, let's see, we talked about here that they want to do here locally. They're all worried about. Let me just see here if we've got. Okay, I'm sorry. Let me go back here. Here's a thing called separating fact from fiction in the Trump era.
Oh, jeez.
So this guy, he's a big editorial guy here on the paper, Nathan Crabb, and we should all be open to listening to different opinions from our own, but we shouldn't feel any obligation to treat false claims as legitimate. Well, of course, who decides? I mean, that's always what it is. Who decides what a false claim? I mean, when you listen to...
Well, you have to listen to it to decide it's false.
Right. And then of course, somebody else will come up and say why it's false. For instance, I didn't know until just now that Comey had been the one that did Martha Stewart, for instance.
Okay.
It's stuff like that weighs in, and when you listen to different opinions on this stuff, you can, some of them are just diametrically opposed, and they all have their proofs, so to speak, if you want to call it that, and their suppositions.
I am so not worried about fake news, as I know you're not either.
No.
Because both of us know that it all comes out in the wash. The amount of fake news that there is directly proportional to the amount of correction articles there are, and everything trickles down. There's verification, cross-verification on every level. So, you can't put a story out there that says, the sun is going to explode tomorrow, because nobody's going to believe it, because you're going to be the only one. And if there's 100 stories that go out like that, and there's a bunch of verification and a bunch of, then there's much more likelihood that people will start to believe it and worry about it, that kind of stuff.
Well, I did notice, for instance, in one of the issues here, I forget which section it was in, they have a true-false thing, and they're talking about our Governor Scott and his idea of the lowest unemployment rate in Florida, which is now about 3.9%, is totally false, that it's the lowest ever, because they found like 3 instances since 1912 where the unemployment rate was 3.8 or 3.7, and I'm thinking, who cares? I mean, you understand that statistically speaking, 3.9 is the same.
Yeah, you're talking about an advertisement. I mean, to me, the newspaper these days is just an advertisement. Every story has been picked just to kind of sway you one way or the other and have you.
Well, of course, and you're right. You got to ask yourself who's picking the stories.
Right.
And of course, we
know
here.
You saw that one meme I sent around with all the news people saying exactly the same thing, right?
Yeah. I did. Right. Same words even.
Right. Same
that's-
exact words.
I remember when, God, what was it that they said? They had a montage of during one election. I think this was a number of years ago, but it had to do with there was some word describing the politician or the group or whatever, and everyone had the same word. It was a word you'd never seen before, and suddenly in 16 different places it was. I forget what the word was. It's been that many years ago. So anyway, it turns out that that this article goes on, and he's talking, parenting. He talks mostly about parenting issues, but the whole thing is that what he's worried about is when Trump lies, then his supporters take it as a fact that they can lie too, and I'm not sure about that. You don't think that's
It's just all the entire premise is just wrong from the beginning.
Yeah.
You just don't have to worry about lies and fake news, and nobody has to have a
Well, the only reason
truthometer.
I do worry about it is because sometimes the politicians get involved and pass a law.
Well, that's what I'm saying is you don't have to worry about it, because if you worry about it, then yeah, some politician's going to get in there and pass a law. And then it distorts everything, because there's some, like I saw an article on Drudge that said, oh my God, if they do this, it'll be crazy. But it said something like, quote unquote, they or the authorities
Yeah.
are considering a license for journalism.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, so you can imagine what that's like. You report something to somebody and they say, whoa, hey, were you authorized? Are you an authorized reporter?
Yeah, and maybe you have to pass a test.
Oh, sure.
And you're certainly going to have to pay some money.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
It's got to be regulated.
Yeah. Gotta be
And,
regulated. Can't have just anybody out there.
Because if you had somebody just out there, they could say something, like they could say tomorrow the Earth is going to spin off its axis into the sun, and everybody would just run out of their houses tomorrow. As soon as they read that, they would just run out of their houses
I
screaming.
have a license.
Right.
See, this is my license. So what? It's like, of course, it's the same thing as lawyers or doctors' licenses. It doesn't promise you anything.
It's nothing.
It's zero.
Look, the fallacy of licensing was destroyed hundreds of years ago in the mercantile system, in the
Right.
collapse of that. Somehow,
Adam Smith destroyed it. I mean, in his
The Wealth of Nations.
Wealth of Nations, he destroyed mercantilism.
Nobody has a license to give out the licenses. That's all
Right.
you need to know.
Yeah, that's
At the top of the pyramid, at the top of every licensing scheme, there's somebody at the top who says, well, I don't have to have a license. Of course I don't have to have the license, because I'm the authority.
right.
So
That's an interesting. I'd love to go down to one of these city commission meetings and say, who gave you the authority?
the license to do the licensing.
License to do licensing. You don't have.
Nobody
Where's
does.
your license?
That's it.
I was elected.
That's nothing they can say.
Yeah, nothing they can say. So let's see. I lost my train of thought.
Well, we were on factual news versus
Yeah, right. A license, right? A license to be a journalist, and of course, as you say, licensing is one of those things that is is a control factor. And here locally, they've come up with not enough. We have a landlord licensing fee in this town. And what happened is, it used to be, not that many years ago, 20 years ago, 25 years ago, that you just, you build your apartments and you rent them out. Now you have to have a license to do any of that kind of stuff, but that's not enough. Well, then they passed a fee. Not only is there an annual fee for the license, but there's also an annual fee for what they started off as the party patrol. And one of the problems was, next to the University of Florida, they had parties after games. This is like 6 or 7 times a year after games, and they would get loud and noisy and be a lot of trash and everything. So enough of the residents went down there and complained. And one of the reasons was, these were residential neighborhoods that were right next to the University of Florida. And what was happening was the parents, would buy their son or daughter or whatever a house up here because they expected it to appreciate until 2008. But the point was that you would put your son and daughter or whatever in the house and maybe get a couple people in there with them to pay the rent or the mortgage. And then when you got out in 4 years or 6 years, depending on how many people were there, you would sell the house, collect your little profit or whatever it is. So it turned out that the residential neighborhoods around the University of Florida suddenly were populated with students. Well, out of sight of their parents, needless to say, they started to party it up. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, the local residents who'd been there for years and years, of course, what they didn't realize was the value of their house had skyrocketed because now they could be rented. And instead of taking their profit and moving out to, Hale Plantation or someplace, they went down and complained. So the city passes an ordinance, and it was called the party ordinance or something. And for $15 a year, that would for each rental property, residential rental property, they could now hire a policeman on those days to go around and police and for the noise ordinance and so forth. They had also built in was a noise ordinance, a trash ordinance, I don't know, a naked ordinance, who knows what, but all that was included in this thing. Well, that has steadily gone up to $200 a year, and it applies all over the city now. In other words, even if you're 5 miles from the University of Florida, you still have to pay this landlord fee. And now they have decided that this is not enough. Some people have come up with 10, I think it's either 10 or 12 additions to the Landlord Licensing Act, and now they want everybody, because a lot of people just, they'll like rent out their room or something like that, and something. They don't have a license for that. But now everybody, and more inspections, and environmental inspections. They want to make sure that the house or the residence or whatever you have rented out is environmentally safe and whatever, and is what do you call it when the house is all sealed up and everything and can't efficient. Mm-hmm. And so they're going to start to do that, and they can't stop meddling with the market system.
Well,
and of course
they believe in the progress made through control, through force.
Well, you should see, of course, the letters to the editor in the Gainesville Sun. The blowback has been rather significant. Mm-hmm. I mean, people are saying, what next is happening here? Well, unfortunately, in the past, this has not stopped the overlords from passing laws. And one in particular case was interesting, was our biomass plant. And the biomass plant was a $1 billion plant, or $750 million plant, that never is going to go online because it's not needed. Mm-hmm. It turns out there are efficiencies and so forth, and so it's wasted money, and we have to pay for it for the next 20 years or something, 25 years. But what's interesting is it goes on in today's paper, for instance, in the issues. There is somebody writing in who happens to be an environmentalist, and should Gainesville use 100% renewable energy? And she goes on to make the case for Gainesville going, and she points out other countries that have done a lot towards this, Germany and some other places like that. I don't know what the deal is, but you got to ask yourself, and one of the things I did do is I went online to find out what the real cost of wind turbines is. And it's kind of like electric cars. What is the real cost? And when you realize that all that electricity comes from coal plants but the point is to erect and use and depreciate a wind farm costs way more than you can imagine. The opportunity cost on building that huge windmill, or hundreds of them, far out, you can never pay for it back.
Well, that's always been our argument. I mean, if those
the market will decide.
Right, if those were efficient uses of your money, more people would do them. You wouldn't have to subsidize them. There would be a natural shift into those energy sources.
Right.
Guess what? They're not. They suck relative to oil and coal. I mean, they just do. In the next 100 years, we'll figure out a difference. I guarantee it. In 100 years, coal and oil will be nominal usage in terms of energy production.
I agree. I think that what we're finding, of course, is speaking of which, just to digress back for a minute, the brandy new carrier from China, conventionally powered. Of course, our latest two are nuclear.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Regular, well, all of our
regular oil. That's what I'm saying.
Right. Well, and most of our big ships, if not all of them, are nuclear powered these days, and we have, and that would be the most obvious choice for how to generate the electricity for the electric cars and things like that.
Well, of course, you say that, but of course, one of the problems you've got is you've got liability problems. And one of the things that the federal government does is to insure of the liability part. So that tax dollars,
Well, but they don't have to do that. That's
no, I know they don't.
distortion.
No. What they're, the question, of course, is if you turn it over, if you turn the new power plants, for instance, completely over to private enterprise, I believe that they would come up with something that was very efficient, and they would have to come up with something that was safe.
It's already super safe and super efficient.
Well, but at what cost?
At low cost. I mean, the only reason we don't do them is because we had, the 3 Mile Island, the political scare. It's
and also the
Chernobyl and
yeah.
But I mean, nobody
now the
died at 3
Japanese
Mile
one.
Island.
Yeah.
And Fukushima, but that was a tidal wave. There was a tidal wave. I mean, it doesn't get much more. That's like if an asteroid hits, okay, you're gonna get some damage.
Yeah.
And Chernobyl was the big one, obviously.
Well, it was a different kind of plant too. It was the ones they build these days are self-extinguishing.
They can do that.
Yeah, they can do that. So yeah, I mean, I agree. But the problem, of course, is with the litigation. If something does happen, I mean, the lawyers are going to be in there, and the courts are going to,
No problem. That's what you want. You want that in there so that the people know when they're erecting the structure, they have to be careful. They don't want to get sued out of business, basically.
Well, that's true.
So that'll work itself out unless, like you said, people get in there and mandate all kinds of bio whatever crap that.
Well, like they did here.
I know.
There's an extra. I don't know how much it is. Dollars and dollars on your electric bill, on everybody's electric bill every month to pay for this mistake that they made. And now here in the paper today, this, I don't know where maybe she just woke up, Rippus Van Winkelis or whatever her name is, and she just has said, let's do this again. And I'm thinking, no, lady, you don't understand the way. I guess you don't understand really how the market works.
No, they don't understand at all. They want progress through force is basically what they think is the best way forward.
Well, it's interesting because there's only two ways to accomplish things.
The free market or the force way.
Well, we call the voluntary
right.
or the non-voluntary. And voluntary exchanges are what made this country fabulous, whether you like it or not. And of course, it made a number of people rather wealthy, which is okay. But I remember when several years ago when Bill Gates was the richest guy in the country for a day or two. But they didn't. What people didn't tell you were what they called the Microsoft millionaires, and there were thousands of people who were working for Microsoft who were worth millions.
Yeah, well, Apple's the same way.
Apple's the same way. Right?
I think there's a lot of people who recognize that and recognize those benefits. I mean, that's all we can hope that there are.
Well, that's right, and of course, there are as there were during the .com bust, for instance, there are notable failures. But hey, it works it out.
Right.
The market finds a way to work that out perfectly.
Yeah.
But it's only when the government gets involved, as they did with the bailout, for instance. I mean, we're talking about trillions of dollars of taxpayer money that went into the bailout, the banks. I'm sorry, banks failed in the 30s, they can fail again. And now, of course, as we've seen, the banks are even a bit larger than they were.
Yes, well.
Then. So that's it. Okay, well, at any rate, we're getting close here to the end.
I got one.
Okay.
I got one thing that I think is important.
Okay, good.
Public topic, current events topic.
Okay.
And this is hilarious to me. Okay, so for anybody who's watching this who doesn't know, we are in Gainesville, Florida. Okay, we're in Alachua County, Florida. Now, Alachua County, Florida is the home of the University of Florida.
Right.
We're basically a little tiny hog town, a little tiny podunk town with a giant international university crammed into it. All right. The population of the town is about 1/4 students and faculty and staff, and 3/4 other people.
Actually, it's more than that.
More students and faculty and staff.
Yeah, no, the population of the town is 2
to 1 or some 3 to 1.
2 to whatever.
Whatever.
Yeah, okay, right.
Lots of students, okay. If you look at this area on a political map, okay, it is an island of blue in a sea of red. When you think of small town Florida, this is not it. This is sort of the Berkeley of Florida.
Yeah.
Okay, as it if you will, So here's what happened last week. I know you know what I'm going with this.
Oh yeah, I do.
So there was a graduation,
Right.
and some black students were manhandled off the stage during the commencement ceremonies.
Right. During the awards ceremony.
Right.
The diploma.
That's right.
Yeah.
Now, anybody who's been to the awards ceremony here knows that the university is so big that there are hundreds, if not thousands, of students that are crossing the stage in a single day.
Right.
And it's very choreographed. Sometimes they have two people giving out the awards at the same time so that they can call people's names, and you can walk up there, and in 1 second you get your picture taken, smile, shake the president's hand, and then you're off.
Right.
Okay? Everybody knows it works like clockwork. Okay? My graduation was 4 hours long.
Right.
Here at the university. So everybody knows that's the deal. Okay, some students violated the deal during the graduation, and what they did was they started dancing.
Well, not only that, they had decorated their hats.
Right, which is another no-no. There's a bunch of rules at this point. The audience members can't clap. There's things that you would think of as maybe being impositions on the freedom to celebrate, but they're all part and parcel to the rules, which are very strict because of these crazy long graduations that they have. So these students started to celebrate, and they were manhandled off the stage. Now, if you look at the video that goes around, it's a bunch of black students that are manhandled off stage, and a white guy is the one who's doing it.
Right.
And the media went nuts on this and said, University of Florida, man, what a bunch of racist pigs down there. All right. Now,
I was on Good Morning America or something.
right, exactly. Now, I haven't seen any more video than that, but Ben Shapiro, I heard Ben playing some stuff where he is narrating what's happening, and he says there are white people who were ushered off the stage just the same. Okay, I don't know, but what I can tell you is this town, if you want to call this university bigoted or racist or whatever, you've gone off the rails. You're so far into your own base at this point.
I see.
This group, you can't. It's like it would be like saying we're anti-LGBT.
AZ.
Yeah, we are totally a welcoming community to everybody here.
Right.
I mean, it doesn't matter where you're from. You can be from any town, anywhere, any country, and there's a group on campus that is like ready to welcome you here with like a gift basket and all kinds of stuff. So for them to call out this university as racist, to me is just shows you how far off they've gone. It's insane for them to do that. They're attacking their own base.
No, it's hysterical because we even have, as you say, there are associations all over campus for all the different groups. I mean, there's Chinese. There's even a building over here for Hispanics.
What kind of Hispanic do you want? I guarantee you there's an Ecuadorian Student Association, a Peruvian Student Association, Madagascar, men from Madagascar. Guaranteed there's a group on campus here. So you just can't say. It's just they've plucked it out of context in such a crazy way.
I mean, again, this is as you've rightly noticed, this is Berkeley East. I mean, this town is, and for instance, it was shown in the election last Tuesday. The lady who was on the city commission ran against somebody who was more or less conservative. Both of them were black.
This county voted 2-1 Hillary over Trump.
Yeah. So anyway, you can
2-1.
Yeah, that's right. No, and of course the mayor wants to make this. He's already called it a welcoming city, but they're talking about making it a sanctuary city. And of course, it's not like we don't get a lot of money from the feds or from the state. We get quite a bit. So if
there was going to be a sanctuary city somewhere, this would be a good one because you got people who speak every language.
Yeah.
What do you want? You need an Arabic speaker? No problem. They got them right there.
They got them.
Half a dozen.
You don't even have Punjab or whatever it is.
Whatever it is, we got somebody who makes them right over here.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, it is fascinating. It is interesting. Again, this is one of those things when you talk about fake news. We live in here, and I work on bullshit.
Right.
I call it bullshit on that news that this place is, when exactly the opposite
Right.
is what's true.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I mean, there's no way you could.
Well, even the letters to the editor were for and against. And of course, as you said, one of the problems is there were 700 students that had to go across the stage that day.
Mm-hmm.
That I don't know how long that is, but it's we were talking about 4 or 5 hours worth.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, if each, instead of taking 1 second, they take 2. Guess what?
It doubles the time.
It doubles the time, right? And so they had anyway. The president came out and said, no mas. Next time, we're not gonna drag anybody off ever again.
It is silly that they
Of course it is.
drag people off the stage or have a time limit or not let you cheer or not whatever. It's like they need to, if the problem is that bad, they need to split it up a different way.
Totally.
something,
Well, again, what you do, what seems to me is you, instead of having 700 people in the audience, you do 7 times 100 people.
Right, exactly.
I mean, it's just
7 graduations.
7 graduations.
Everybody A through K is going to graduate from 9 to 10.
Right.
L through T or whatever.
Well, exactly. So
you just go
and there's
through-
a lot of other ways to do it. I think even one person got a dislocated shoulder or something. I mean, that was part of the deal. But
it wasn't like they were thrown off stage.
no,
from what
but
I
it was
saw.
apparently it did create a. I don't know. Apparently, every iPhone out there was filming the transgression part.
What I saw was a pushy usher.
Okay.
I mean, big deal. It's like if you were to be brought out of a concert. You jump down, you jump over the front row of the concert. The security guard grabs you. That's what they're going to do. They're going to grab you. They're going to throw you out.
Okay.
It's like it was like being at a club or something. They grab you. Not even club. They're going to throw you down.
Yeah.
You're getting pushed down at
Yeah.
least a little bit. But
Yeah.
they didn't do that. So it is what it is. But
Okay. One more thing.
okay, what's that?
Stephen Hawking's funeral.
Okay.
They sent out invitations to people in the future. And they said if you will come and tell me you're from the future and bring your birth certificate that shows you your birth date between now and 2038 or something, you can get in. You can come. Well, so
All
far,
right, we're in.
Well, except for the fact that Stephen Hawking once said he could understand time travel into the past, but couldn't see time travel into the future. And so, no, let's see. Yeah, right. Into the past, yeah, because you could go. So anyway, that they sent a note. It's basically what has happened on Big Bang Theory, and that is, you put a note up here, and if there's time travel, I'll show up here or something.
That's
like
right. That's right.
Well, so far nobody has sent a note back saying I'll be there.
Right.
So they apparently time travel is not one of the things that has ever been invented.
Yeah. Well, I'm shocked, frankly, that they weren't more respondents.
Again, this was one. I thought this was kind of interesting. They said, well, we're willing to take those time travelers.
I mean, what if we sent them a note and said, well, we're not from the future, but we're from a galaxy far, far away, or
yeah, I'm an alien.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, of course, give new words to the aliens. Yeah.
That's right.
Show up like one of those things in.
That's right. We're just in our human form.
Yeah. Well, it's like what was
and we rented that car. Yes.
What is it, Men in Black or whatever it was? Those kinds of aliens. Yeah. So anyway, if anybody from the future is watching this, if you clicked on this show, open invitation. Don't forget, you can go to Stephen Hawking's funeral, which is next week or something. Okay,
there you go.
I'm about done.
Okay, let's see.
Thank you all for watching. Don't forget the Jimmy Doane Show. You can like it. Just tell your friends.
Yep. And you should be able to share now and make comments and stuff down in the below. So feel free. We'll see you next week.
If not before.
Yeah.
I get my eyes fixed tomorrow.
All right.
I hope.